Hey everyone, welcome to my show. Be sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube and Twitch for all my exclusive content. Good evening, everybody. So, what are we talking about today? Today, it's that time of year, right? We're talking about our next event store. A lot of you have been asking me if I was going to do a video, kind of doing my thoughts and feedback on our event store for the Deep Space Nine arc that's coming to a close here in December 2022. And yes, and here it is. I was holding off on doing this because I wanted to see if they were going to add anything else to the store. There's always a time where they put the store out, people reach out and say, hey, what about this or what about this? And sometimes they do add a few things, but it's been a week and they haven't really added anything that we asked for. So I decided, let's just go ahead and jump right in and get it done. So we're going to do my very typical in-depth analysis, deep dive through everything that's in the store. For those of you who are just looking for my personal recommendations, you're going to want to, and don't really care about the why behind things, you're going to want to jump ahead like at least a half hour. Because like I said, I'm going to go through everything, and I'm going to talk about stuff in detail. We're going to talk about officers, refits, ship blueprints, all that stuff in a decent amount of detail. And then we'll get to the midway point, and we'll start talking about some specific items that might be more must-have items as opposed to some of the other stuff in the store, because all of it looks pretty good and tempting, right? So I'll try and leave something in the item description letting you know where my actual recommendation section breaks down. It'll be the part that starts with the Excel spreadsheet if you're scrolling through it, because I definitely recommend that. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So here we go. Here's our Deep Space Nine event store. For some reason, Odo is not in with the other officers, so I guess we'll talk about him first. We'll just work from left to right, right? Odo. Odo is a good officer. His officer ability gives you extra mitigation only against solo armadas. You do already have an officer like this with Cisco, who's already adding mitigation against any armada. That's his captain's ability. Odo gives you functionality because technically you can run two separate Deep Space Nine crews. It's Cisco and O'Brien in one group, and like Dax and Bashir and Odo in another group. So that's kind of where they're giving you the abilities there. His lower deck ability is probably the one people are most interested in him for. Increasing critical hit damage by 20% is a great ability. But at what cost? You get, through the holodeck missions, you get 3 Odo shards, and if you complete the Battle Pass and the Heroic Overflow event, you get 3 more. So that's 6 out of 120. So that means, quick math time, you're going to need 114 more at 4,500 apiece. 513,000 is what you're talking about. Now, the average, most months, our average event store pays out between 450 and 500,000 event store currency. This one seems like it's going to be a little heavier. Maybe because it's Christmas, maybe because they've had some other issues the last couple of months and they're being a little more heavy-handed with the holiday loot. Maybe because this is the only way they're giving us Odo, and they decide, like, look, we got to make sure people can get him if they really want him, and then not have that be the only thing that they get. But you ain't getting much else if you're picking Odo. 513,000. Let's say maybe we get 600, 6.25. That leaves you like 75k, 100k at best. So maybe you're picking up a couple of ship blueprints, or maybe a couple of rare officer shards to finish up an officer that you got close to unlocking in a previous month. And at this cost, I'm tempted to skip Odo. I would love to have Odo. I think he's a good officer, but I think unless you are a high-level player and you already have everything else in the store and you bought some of the newer Deep Space Nine officers and the strike team crews and things like that, then you're looking around and saying, well, there's not much in the store for me, so I might as well get Odo. And that makes perfect sense. But for most players, especially the free-to-play people who may not have been as competitive with, the Explorer, the Interceptor strike team events I think you'd rather have, instead of spending $100 million on one all-star player and having nobody to put around him, you'd rather, spend $20 million on five guys and, have a solid lineup and win. That's what you're thinking about, If you're the general manager, you've got a limited budget here of what to spend, and you got to put together the best team. It's probably the best analogy that I can come up with like that. So Odo is good, but I think he's too expensive, so we're going to pass on him. The directive bundle, something that they added for a very short period of time. Talked about this on my Tuesday live Twitch stream a little bit, but for those of you who might have missed that, we'll cover it again here real quick. Value-wise, 120,000. You're getting mathematical value in this because the epic officer shards would cost you 6,000 apiece. So 60,000 for Riker, 60,000 for Jayla is 120,000. So now you're getting all of these other directives and stuff with it. But how much extra value are those adding? That's going to depend greatly on your ops level. If you're under ops 40, Dominion Solo Rare Armada directives don't really have a lot of value to you yet. You can't get them until you hit ops 40 because they are not available in your Bajoran faction turn-ins. And the requirements to actually kill Solo Rare Armadas, you're probably not getting until then anyway. You can't even do the turn-ins even if you get the credits for them. So it's really more of an Ops 40 plus thing. One regular Armada directive, okay. Two regular rares, okay. That's a nice little added bonus. Eclipse directives, these are pretty easy to source. I mean, rare Eclipse ones you can get on a daily basis, and then you do a couple of rares, and you get, a decent amount here of epic directives as well to do these. Stella, not a great mechanic, so that's not a great extra value here. And then you come over here to the Borg Cube, and for the most part, the Borg event only runs like quarterly, so we don't see it all that often. The Mega Cube, there is a trick to this. Usually what happens is the first time you're participating in the Borg event, you have to spend your event store currency instead of trading it in for, officers, of which you only get like 5 or 6 officer shards every time they run the event. It's not a big payout like we have here. It's more like, hey, you got 50,000 currency, what do you want to spend it on? And it's like, well, I guess I'll get 6 or 7 officer shards. Or 6 or 7, Vidar refit skin shards or something like that. But there is a trick. The first time you do it, you spend your event store currency on the Mega Cube directives. Then the next time it runs, there's always an event on the last day to go attack the Mega Cube. And if you spend the Mega Cube directives, they give you 10 Mega Cube directives, which you don't spend, and you just save them for the next time it comes around. And then you just keep doing that loop. So you just pay it forward to the next iteration of the event. So if you've been doing that, you probably have 10 Mega Cube directives sitting in your inventory waiting for the next Borg event, in which case you don't really need these. And the regular Borg Armadas pay out garbage, so you don't really need these much either. So really what you're spending 120,000 on is 10 Riker shards, who's sourceable through Ultra Recruits and through Transporter Patterns, 10 Jayla shards, which may or may not make a difference for you if you just chose Jayla as your officer for the 4th anniversary gift. You got enough to unlock her. So where does that leave you? Does 10 shards get you closer to tiering her up or anything like that? She's hard to source. She only comes really out of being the person starting the Swarm Armadas, and even then you've only got like a 15 or 20% chance of actually getting 4 shards for her. As you can see here, I currently need 200 shards. So what is 10 shards really doing for me? If there were 10 Jayla shards available in the event store, if she was just by herself, would I spend 60,000 currency on her? Probably not. So while this is a very nice bundle, it is not something that's like a must-buy for every player, I don't feel like. It's going to kind of depend on where you are and where these officers are going to get you. What does 10 Riker shards get me right now? Nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. Same thing with Jayla. Well, this is a drop in the ocean. This is a drop in the bucket. So really, I'd just be spending that to buy the directives. There's some value there, for sure. These are harder to come by. but that's going to be one of those things you're going to have to see just where exactly it comes into. Plus, they're also making you choose to spend it now up front, and who knows, maybe when this timer's up, they'll add something else to the store in place of it, and that'll be like, oh wait, the second thing was actually better than the first thing. I wish I still had all that currency. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? You know, is the good prize behind door number one, or is there something behind door number two? What if there is no door number two? Like that's always the game they love to play, right? You get the fear of missing out because it's a limited time thing that's about to run out, but then you've seen this movie before, so you're like, yeah, but usually there's, when this expires, like they might replace it with something else, and that thing might be better. But if I just spent a bunch of my currency on this and now I can't afford that, well, then I've got to buy a pack to get more currency so I can buy the thing that they just put into the store, and that all starts to add up after a while. So there's my thoughts on that. Amalgam cloaking refit. Again, don't know why this isn't in with the other ones, but no, this is sourceable through the Amalgam store. 80 shards to unlock. You're talking about 8 bundles there. That's like 150,000 event store currency. Is it worth spending, 25%, we'll say, of your store? If you get 600K, if you're getting, this is a fourth of your things just to cloak your amalgam. Cloaking your amalgam is good, don't get me wrong. Being able to sneak in and out of systems, especially ones that are contested, or people are playing defense and try and grab some base defense loot. But at the same time, it is here in your amalgam store, amalgam cloaking. It'll take you a while to get it, but you can get shards right there at 36 of these things. So maybe you're getting 2 or 3 shards a week. Maybe if you get a lucky pull or two, you can speed it along a little bit, but yeah, not really seeing it there. There's other ways to get that, and it's not that good to begin with. All right, we'll get into officers. That's the highlight, right? Officers and research, pretty much what are your constant forces throughout the game, right? Your officers level up, they never go away. You put them on, when they're not as good as the new ones they put out for your bridge crew, they just move down to the lower deck slots, or they start moving away into doing all your away team assignments, so you hit more of those criticals, or you get those extra bonuses for going above 100%. So officers are always a good way to go. And there are plenty of good ones in here. Cisco and Miles, if you've been keeping up with the arc, you should already have both of these officers, and you probably have tiered them. At least Miles is at least tiered up once, if not twice by now, throughout the event. Cisco should be unlocked and possibly tiered up already for you, depending on how things are going. Both of these officers are currently available through the Bajoran faction store in a variety of ways. If you're 35 and under, all you're seeing is the uncommon box here. I'm sorry, 39 and under, and the elite loot exchange box, which does have a chance to get Cisco, O'Brien, and Changeling Kira, who is noticeably absent from the store. Shards for them. It takes the edicts. You got to kill a lot of armadas in order to get those, to get it done. So if you're close, like I'm close to leveling up Cisco right now, would 12 Cisco shards make a big impact? It probably would, and it's not that expensive. 6,000 a piece. It's 72,000 currency. That's 10-15% of my total event store loot to tier up Cisco. Could be worth it. Wouldn't spend it on it right now, though, because they are still running other events and things like that where you might get shards for these officers. So let's caveat that, too. Don't spend anything yet. This is just kind of the walkthrough. But those 2 officers are available there already. Once you get above Ops 40 and you start getting access to the rare and epic loot boxes, there's more O'Brien shard chances there. And the elite the epic box here has more Cisco shard chances as well. So even if you miss them on the event store, you will eventually have sourcing for these guys through here. Those are the only ones currently in that store. Perhaps they may add the new officers like Jadzia and Bashir to that eventually, and the other Kira, and possibly Odo. But currently, we don't know what the sourcing path for these guys is going to be yet. All right. Which brings us then to the strike team crews. Gul Dukat, Garrick, and Damar are your interceptor strike team. Wayun, Akatika, and Pan are your explorer strike team. This was your October event. This was your November event group. So you should have, if you were participating in those events, you should have Garrick unlocked. You should have Pan unlocked. You probably got some Damar and some Akatika. Maybe you're halfway there. And then depending on how you're, first off, how much you invested in how much resources you had available to spend in the leaderboard events to get Wayun shards, to get Dukat shards, and then because they paid out those packs that you had to open, and also there's a little bit of random RNG luck involved. We'll just call it what it is, luck, with how many of these particular officer shards you might have. You got some through the solo milestone, and then a pack that you opened, and maybe you got a few more. At least they were nice enough to put Dukat in the pack with Wayun. So, because the Dukat event he was kind of stingy, but it gave you an opportunity to get a few more while you were also trying to get Wayun shards. All three of these officers and these crews are exceptionally good for PvP. That's all they do is PvP fight. All their abilities are to player ships, that kind of thing. I'd put them on the list of, toward the top of the list, start figuring out how many shards of each you currently need, and then, space out what you can afford. But these 6 officers are definitely worth investing in. Again, we don't know when they're going to come back, what the sourcing for them is going to be. Are they going to go into the incursion store like the battleship strike team? Are they going to come back 6 months later in a future event? Are they only going to be sold in the future? So the only way to get them is going to be to pay for them? Who knows? So they're here now. If you can get them, yeah, probably want to take advantage of that opportunity. Pattern buffers. Pattern buffers are for old holodeck missions. Maybe from arcs you didn't participate in. Maybe from arcs you were involved in but weren't the right ops level to do certain missions yet. They're fairly expensive because most of the missions cost, I think, like 1,000. We'll go look. I think some of them cost over 1,000 to do. If we go into our holodeck and see, oh, apparently I didn't pick up some of these. Well, good thing I went in here and looked. I'm just going to grab these real quick while I'm here. Pardon the interruption. Alright, so these are 2 old TOS missions. They're 1,000. Next generation. There's a bunch of missions for the next generation arc, if it wants to load. Maybe we skip it. The Discovery arc, but you can see these are very low-level missions. The Outlaws ones, these are also available other ways. Then you've got the Borg arc ones here. So some of these are 2,000, to unlock. But you also look at the level for these. Some of these are lower level missions. So maybe you missed this arc, but it's like, would you really want to go back and do a level 25 Borg arc? Or level 26? Like, I'm level 35, what is this going to give me? There is a chart that Black Half Dan put together. I will leave a link to it, if I remember, in the item description, at least his video, that kind of goes through everything with what each of those things represents, because they're not the name of a mission. They're just a piece of a story arc. You purchase that, it then gives you a mission, much like I just got here, which you then can go look up on, stfc.space or something like that, and then find out what the mission chain looks like and find out the rewards. Well, Dan and his team put together an Excel spreadsheet where they did all that work for you. They acquired all of those missions, or got people to acquire all of those missions and tell them what the underlying mission was, so then they could pull the details for it, and you can see what you're getting. And the most of those things, you're getting a little bit of like 3-star resources, maybe some like speed ups or latinum, maybe 1 or 2 officer shards from the people who were in that particular arc, but not really a whole lot going on here. So not really worth the investment is what I'm saying there. And then over here you have Ultra Recruit tokens. Plenty of ways to get Ultra Recruit tokens. This is more of a, I spent everything that I have, and this is all I have left is like 3,000, and it's like, well, what do I get? Maybe you buy Ultra Recruit pack or something. It's not even a pack. It's like a fourth of a pack. So you know what? Just say no to those altogether too. All right. Special currencies. Active nanoprobes. This is probably going to be a no, because 75,000 is a ridiculous amount. I know you need a lot of these to promote your Borg officers, especially the epics. And when you get them up to like tier 4, tier 5, you're talking about like 1 million nanoprobes. But you also get those every day through the Borg refinery. So unless, you know what, not even unless. At 75,000, it's just not worth doing. It's just way too expensive. Cultivated mycelium, 80,000. This is what you use for jumping your discovery, right? 80,000 of this, that's a lot of discovery jumps. If you're a player who jumps all over the place because you're doing PvP or you're constantly late to armadas, okay, maybe this is something you grab one of. Stock up on. I mean, a regular discovery jump costs like 300 or 400 if you've got your discovery leveled up quite a bit. And then to summon to drag your other ship out there, if you don't have the right crew, if you don't have the Stamets crew that reduces it, it's going to cost you like 1,000. If you need the warp range, like if you have to put Scotty and Grush to get your discovery far enough to then summon your other ship, it's going to cost you like 350 or so to jump your discovery out, and then 1,000 to drag your other ship out there. So it's like 1,300 every time you want to do it. Maybe you might need some of this, but that's like a bottom of the list kind of thing. Not really a big deal. Syndicate XP is a little bit of a big deal. 850 Syndicate XP for 7,500 isn't a terrible value, but as we can see, if you go over here to stfc.space, there is a Syndicate chart. This is total Syndicate XP, not like what it costs each level. So to go from level 4 to level 5, level 4 is 11,000, level 5 is 17,000. So you need to gain 6,000 to move from one level to the next. This is a cumulative total. Most people are down here, in this 15 to 20 range if you're just sort of a free-to-play path. But what you're starting to think about is you're getting these extra rewards and things like that, but these milestones start moving further and further apart. Syndicate XP has gotten better because now you have the extra Bajoran favor that's giving you 500 more a day, plus you have the Mantis, which can give you, 1,500 at its base value, 3,000 if you're doing a double pull, and then as you tier that up, that number increases. My Mantis is tier 5, I'm getting 1,900 a day, 3,800 if I do a double pull. So getting 850, not as big of a value. If I'm like a level 28 player and I don't have a Mantis yet, and I don't have access to the Bajoran faction store, and I'm just getting like 200 or 250 XP a day, and I'm, we'll say I'm level 12, and it's 20,000. That's a long time to go from 12 to 13. So if the rewards here, which is a bonus to mining speed, extra Grush shards, maybe that's enough to tier up Grush, getting extra rewards from my daily milestones, those kinds of things, maybe this is worth investing a little bit in. This one's going to vary drastically based on your ops level. Most people are trying to get to 26, so you start getting Mavery shards, but you're talking about 1.4 million total. I'm currently here at level 20. If I need to get to 1.4 million and I'm at 460,000, I need a million syndicate XP. 850, not really going to make a dent in that. And then people want to get even higher because they want to get to 30, because then you start getting the buffs from the generators. And that's 2.6 million is where that kicks in at. So if I'm right where I am, right? Am I level 20? Yeah, I'm almost done with level 20. So we'll call it and say I'm level 21. So we'll say I'm at 21. So I'm right here. We'll call it 570,000. And in order to get Mavery shards, I got to get to 26. That's 900,000. And to get to 30, where the buffs actually kicked in, that's over 2 million. I know every little bit helps, but I think there's more immediate things that I could be spending my event store currency on than Syndicate XP. Trait XP isn't bad. 1,300 for 3,000. There's good, decent value there. There are plenty of ways, there's other ways to get trait XP. It does also now come in the Bajoran faction store, so that's going to speed up that. So that makes this less of an urgency because it is in that uncommon chest in the Bajoran faction store. So I don't know that I would, again, maybe this is a thing at the end. If you just have like 5 or 10,000 currency left after you buy your other items, your officers and things like that, you're like, well, what else do I get? Maybe you pick up 1 or 2 bundles of trade XP just to finish off your event store. Independent credits, these are also a good way, but these are a little more expensive. This is almost 20K for 500 independent credits. There are a lot more independent officers now. They're starting to add more and more into the game, so the need for independent credits continues to grow, and the sourcing for them is not great. However, they did make a recent change that you can use Latinum. It's a terrible conversion rate, 50 Latinum per credit, but you can convert Latinum into independent credits to help tier up some of those officers, like the Mud group, the Khan group, some of those guys, Grush and Mavery, and some of those people that you might need, credits for. Your Borg officers. In addition to the nanoprobes, they also take independent credits. Urbanite is what you use for buffing stuff with the Cerritos. Much like the Discovery, you get, like it has a refinery, and you get a daily allowance of it. You can only hold up to about 20,000 before that turns off, and you're probably looking at about 2,500 to 3,000 every time you use your Cerritos to buff something. Are you going to need to buff something more than 7 or 8 times, like in a day or in a week? Probably don't need this. Culver particles is what you use for the research. You get this from your Cerritos refinery. Every time you do a turn-in, you're guaranteed to get Culver particles. Probably don't need this. The research for the Cerritos isn't all that vital. Cloaked Racketeer token is exactly that. It's a racket. We've made fun of this thing before. It's 60,000. It gets you 1 terrible research, which we'll look at right here for those of you who missed it in my August video. In your galaxy tree with all your cloaking stuff is this Prime Cloaked Racketeer. Now you're saying, well, Tibbs, you've got it. What's going on there? They gave it to us for free back when they released cloaking, whatever, a year ago. Everybody else, if you're new to the game, they're making you spend 60,000 event store currency to get this. What does this do? It increases the rewards from your cloaking dailies. Well, your cloaking dailies give you these little Tetrion radiation particles, which you use to complete certain researches. There are a very limited number of researches that revolve around cloaking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Once you've finished these, you stop doing your cloaking dailies, right? Or you accidentally do them because you're just cloaking to kill people, and then you complete the daily. So getting double the rewards... Oh, 7. Sorry, I missed one. So getting double the rewards for doing your daily turn-in Like for the first week, it's great because it helps you get some of these through. But after like the first week, it's just like, okay, great. Now I finished most of them. I don't even do my cloaking dailies half the time, or if I do, like I have such an abundance. I have 6,000. I need 400 to do this research, which by the way takes 36 days to complete. So, you know, 87 days to complete only takes 380. Same thing over here. Like I could do these. I'm not doing them because I'm short on the Tetrion particles. I'm not doing them because I don't want to spend 150 million dilithium, and I don't want to spend 87 days doing a research to get an extra 2% to my cloaking duration. So instead of cloaking for 6 minutes, I cloak for 6 minutes and 15 seconds or whatever it works out to be. So, really not worth it. Save yourself 60,000 credits. Use that to get yourself 10 epic officer shards instead. And Axion chips, no, the elite one, this is a bigger bundle. Gives you 480,000 for 150k. Hang on, let's go back and do the math. The regular one, so basically, instead of spending 30 for 80, or 5 times this would be 150 for 400, you're spending 150 and getting 480. So basically you're buying 5 and getting the 6th free. If you really need mycelium, because you're somebody who just discos everywhere, okay, maybe that's a thing for you. Orb splinters, this is for the automated defenses for the mining ship refits for the 3-star and 4-star miners. Again, there's a limit, there's a cap on this, like the cloaking, tetrions, and things like that. You get daily free amounts. Probably don't need to spend on this either. Ship blueprints. These are going to vary drastically by level. For the first time ever, we have 4-star, and if you're over Ops 50, you have 5-star ship blueprints available. You basically have to be close to the level and have the faction reputation as well needed to build the ship. You'll notice I have all 3 level 42s, but I only have 2 of the 46s showing here for my account because my Klingon reputation is not high enough yet. So I do not see the Coronar available to purchase. These are a little on the expensive side, and I'd probably, unless you just need the last handful of so because you're close to building it and you're already at the ops level, you're already at 42 and you're just trying to get that extra push, maybe then grabbing a couple of these to get you there. But they're sourceable through faction credits. They're also through the away team store, so you do have ways to get these blueprints. You can also, if you have the ability to kill big stuff, and if you start killing ships, like level 46 and higher, they do drop blueprints for these ships. The capital traders don't work quite as well in the systems anymore, but if you can get out deep space, if you use your discovery to jump out to deep space and then or relocate your base, out to a level 46 system, like you send your Franklin or your Fisha or something out there, and then relocate your base to one of the 46 system hubs and start killing stuff around there with like your Augur or your Enterprise, you might get some of these blueprints to drop. Which just might help out. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, we'll show you real fast. So out here in deep space, so you've got 2 warp hubs. You've got this one right here, which requires warp 75 to reach. All of these little 5 systems off of Hollis and the other 43s, you can put your base into. As you see, somebody in my alliance has their base out there right now. And when you do that, you don't need warp 75 to move between these systems in this hub. I think you'll need like warp 40 to do it. So if you moved your base out here, you could move your Augur or your Enterprise or your D4 or whatever between these other systems and kill stuff and farm for blueprints or your jellyfish or whatever you're using. To move out of this system, like if you're like, oh, I don't want to mine gas, I want to go mine crystal, well, you would have to have over 75 warp range to get over the speed bump to get out of this system and eventually get your ship back. Further out, there's another hub based around a 46 system that requires warp 120 to reach. Same principle applies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 you can move around in. For some reason, the 6th system, this one right here, has a higher warp range to it. It's not part of the hub. You can see Talwu is 120 on a level 47 system, but Eureka is a 135. You would not be able to move, if you camped your base in Alea, you would be able to move to any of these, but not to Eureka. But you could, use the combat triangle to your advantage. If you have a maxed out Enterprise or Augur, you should be able to do some decent farming. Pike, Moreau, Chen, all maxed out, right? Kill a handful of stuff, pick up some chests. You might get 1 or 2 blueprints per 40 or 50 item chests to drop for you. That might help with your grinding time a little bit if you're willing to invest the actual time into the game to get that a little sooner. What we usually spend blueprints on in the event store are specialty ships. Specialty ships like the Mantis. This is a good one to get, or at least get some of, right? We know this is going to be sourceable through incursions, depending on where you are in your Mantis acquisition. If you were doing the event in August and you bought the bottom half of the Battle Pass, you got 50 from that. We had an incursions event. Depending on how you did in that, you might have gotten between 15 and 25 more shards. So you could be up to as high as like 65 or 75 shards, somewhere in that range. We know we have an incursions event coming up the first week of January. We got 500 or 480 or whatever it was in the gift chest that they gave out the other day. So that's pretty close to 5 blueprints right there. Plus, assume maybe you get another 1,500 credits out of the actual events, even if you lose the incursion, right? So if you waited this long and you're okay waiting another 2 or 3 weeks, you could get, where does that leave you is really what I'm trying to say here. The Mantis blueprints are not expensive. They are a tremendous value. You can buy the whole ship for 150K and just be done with it. You probably don't need, most people probably don't need that though. They probably already have some of it, half of it, 3/4 of it. So you're spending a lot less, and you can just get it now and be done with it, and then you can start your loop. Or, you can think about it, all right, well, it's already December 14th, right? Hey, I got the date right. It's already December 14th. 3 more weeks from today, we'll probably have incursions going again. If I need 80 blueprints still, well, I know I'm going to get maybe 20 out of the incursion. That knocks me down to 60. Maybe I just buy the 60 now, and if I'm on a tight budget, at least think about the option that leave yourself only needing 20. So that way when the next incursion rolls around the first week of January and you participate in that, you can get the last 20 and get your Mantis unlocked. If you have the extra currency, take it all now. Get the ship now. Get it working, get it leveled up, maybe get it up to tier 2 before that incursion starts. But if you're trying to figure out ways to squeeze out, like, oh man, I can't afford both strike team officers and a full Mantis that I want, how can I go about doing this? That might be a corner that you could cut to save a little bit of currency, to save 30K or 40K worth of currency, to let you finish up an officer who you won't have another way to source coming back up. G3 epics, again, unless you're within like the last 5 or 10 blueprints you need to unlock the ship, probably not worth the price at 10,000 a shard. Really not worth the price. But if you're just like, I have 145 out of 150 auger shards, and gosh darn it, I really want this freaking ship, go for it, man. Just bang out those last 5 and get your ship and go on. But if you need like more than 5 and you really don't want to wait, yeah, these are way too expensive. Same thing with all these ships for lower levels. Most people skip the 32s altogether, so really not worth spending 8,800. Oh, for 2 shards. Oh, you get 2 for 8,800. So 4,400 a piece for a 32 rare ship. Probably not going to do it there. The rare miners, these are not worth buying. These drop plenty of blueprints when you're doing your dailies. If you're killing 35 to 39s or 40s for do your dailies, grinding your faction rep, trying to get to that 10 million lock, whatever your case may be, you're going to get plenty of these blueprints. You're going to get plenty of these blueprints. And just to iterate that fact a little bit here. So this is my free-to-play Ops 35 account. I have not purchased any of these blueprints. I just got this account triple locked at Ops 35. So all 3 factions are now locked at 10 million. And we're just going to... So just from killing stuff, I've already got about 17 a piece of each of these things, and that was just to do the basic stuff with that. These are going to come in time, and these also do take a good amount of resources to upgrade. Resources that you probably would be better used spending on more of your combat ships in this range, so you can do things like armadas or solo armadas, and, the faction miners will come in time, and you'll get them when you get them. The 28s and the 26s, yeah, these again, I mean, they're giving them to you in bundles of 5. These drop a lot. The 28s drop pretty frequently from faction grinding. The 26s don't. And these are the ones that mid-level players in the mid-30s like to level up and scrap so they can get 4-star materials, so they can get some of those primes. Also, when you do get the 39, scrapping a Mayflower, will help with your ISS Jellyfish, because you will get 4-star Explorer parts and 4-star gas, which is what you need to level up your Jellyfish. So at 55, 1,100 a piece, instead of spending the faction credits or the away team credits, this isn't a terrible value, but I still wouldn't recommend buying it. Maybe as like your 3rd or 4th choice item if it really wasn't anything else for you. Separatist D3 over here. This is just a collector's item because it's red. It looks different than the other ship. Woo! Yay! You still can't scrap it. It's still an underpowered ship compared to everything else that comes after it. So no big deal there. Specialty ship, Meridian. This is for mining isogen. This is currently the only way to get this ship is through this store. Costs 100 to build it. They're giving you 5 blueprints for 7,500, which basically means, again, 1,500 a piece, like the Mantis. 150,000 gets you a full unlock of a Meridian. They'll even let you buy 2. Definitely get yourself 1. If you have 1 already, picking up a second one isn't bad. It does help with your isogen, and then that helps you get bigger pulls out of your daily refinery if you have a larger surplus, which then lets you do some of the more expensive territory researches as you get further and further into the game. Do you need 2? No. Do you need 1? Yes. And since this is the only way to get it currently, it's a worthwhile investment. Mining isogen is key for turning on territory buffs as well for your alliance, so fun things there. Vidar, North Star, Jellyfish, Vidar, North Star, Discovery, Amalgam, Sarcophagus. Those are the 5 ships that are currently available through Cosmic Cleanup. It runs every Saturday. You get enough currency with the turn-ins to get, 1 turn-in. That will give you 10 Vidar blueprints, 10 Discovery blueprints. I think you can get the North Star through there as well when you're like a level 18. Skip this one at this point. The game moves too quick now. You don't really get much value out of the North Star anymore. But Vidar and Discovery you're going to use for the rest of the game. And if you're a little impatient and you don't want to wait, you could shave a couple weeks off of one of these acquisitions. 3,800 for 5. Pretty good value there. Discovery, again, 3,800 for 5. If you're getting 10 a week, it takes you 10 weeks to get it for 7,600. you can cut it down. You take a week off that. So maybe you grab 2 or 3 weeks worth of these if you don't have this ship yet, to at least cut down that time. You can go all the way and get the whole ship if you want, but even if you just grab a couple, so that way it cuts down on your wait time for that. It'll make your life easier. Devore, no. You get, when you turn Ops 23, they basically give you, every Monday you get an event that gives you 25 Devore blueprints. It costs you 100 to build the ship. Or they give you 30. They give you 100. They give you 30. It's 120 to build the ship. It takes you 4 weeks and you get a Devore. After that, like having a second one or a third one, like you're going to get blueprints in your 30-day chests for these. You'd only need one, really. Platinum Rush events aren't really all they're cracked up to be. Only the top 2 or 3 spots get any like decent rewards, which is basically just more parts to level up your Devore a little bit faster. Really not probably worth having 2 of them, because then you're going to spend your whole Monday just mining. Maybe if that's your thing, go for it. Wouldn't personally recommend it. North Star's kind of a skip ship these days. It was a great ship 2 years ago. It's what a lot of us use to get from 18 to 24, but the game has sped up so much in terms of the resource payouts in the Battle Pass that moving from 18 to 24 doesn't take you nearly as long anymore. So the time you're spending investing in your North Star, you probably could have just moved up ops levels and then gotten to Kumari or something like that. That's going to actually do a lot more damage and use a lot of the same resources to level up. The baby jelly I love. It's cheap, 2,000 for 5 blueprints. You're talking about 15 turn-ins, 30,000 gets you a baby jellyfish. The baby jellyfish is like, why would I want this ship? It's a crappy little level 12 explorer. You want that ship for its ship ability. The ship ability, this pilot recognition, when it's maxed out, increases the effectiveness of the captain's maneuver by 70%. This is critical for base defense. Putting an officer like Yuki or like Crass or some of these other people, boosting their captain's ability. If you don't know what Yuki does, Yuki decreases the shield health of the opponent by 20% each round. That's what she does. So every round she takes 20% from their health away until they eventually have no shields left. Whatever the value it was taking away, so if it was taking away 10,000 of their shield health, now this is going to kick in and give you 70% more of that. So it took away 10, now it's taking an extra 7. I think if I did the math right on that. So instead of taking 10,000, it actually took like 17,000 away. It doesn't take 90% of it away. It takes 70% more of the 20% that it took. At least that's how I understand it. Leave a comment if I did the math wrong on that one. Maybe there's something I don't know about how that actually works. But I'm pretty confident in my answer. So I'm sticking with it. And picking up 1 or 2 of these ships to use for base defense for a very cheap price would give you the ability to put Yuki on 1, to put Crass. Crass is an officer that negates their captain's ability. So an officer like Rom might not work. Rom's attacking your base. He's going to delay your weapons from all firing at him for the first round. Crass has a chance of stopping that. If you have Crass on a jellyfish, Crass is definitely stopping that. And it's relatively cheap. So that ship does retain its value. That's all I'm really trying to say there. Moving along, moving along. Botany Bay, no. Second Stella, yes. Stella's good. Make sure you get your first Stella through the Rogue Store. Once you acquire a Stella, the ability to grind one for free from the Rogue Store goes away. So if you buy this one right here from your event store, you lose the ability to grind the one for free from that. You're going to want 2 Stellas. Some people go as far as 3. I think that's a little overkill. 2 is good. 1 you keep maxed as high as you can get it. The other one you level up to whatever materials you're not using for your main ship, you level it up to that point, scrap it, rebuild it, scrap it, rebuild it to keep getting the research tokens for it. So once you're your main Stella gets into the rare materials. You're leveling the second one up to level 20 and scrapping it because it's just using uncommons at that point. And then when your main Stella gets to the point where it's using epics, then you're leveling up your other Stella into the point where you're using rares as high as you can get it, and then scrapping it for a lot more resources and materials to keep doing the research. The value of the Stella is all done through the research. It has an M score. There's 160 levels of different researches throughout the whole outlaw tree. That is where the majority of the strength of the Stella comes from, is from those researches. So leveling up and scrapping to get those done is actually going to boost your Stella more than increasing the actual weapon components and tier of the ship and things like that. That also then does let you get access to other researches that are more universal, such as things that reduce the cost of ship components, things that are give you more efficiencies for crystal research, for buildings, for gas and ore as well. So good stuff there. That's what you do with the second Stella. Botany Bay, no. The Cerritos, we can actually talk about really well because the event's going on right now. So the Cerritos, you're limited to 50 blueprints, which is half the ship. I definitely recommend buying at least 10. Why do I say get at least 10 when they give you 10 every Wednesday, right? Because this is the loophole. So this event currently, the USS Cerritos event that gives you the blueprints for it, California class is the name of it. The last milestone gives you 10 blueprints. When you complete this event 10 times and you have acquired 100 blueprints from the Cerritos from this event stops spawning for you. So every Wednesday, you will no longer see this event. So if you want to build a Cerritos, buy 20 blueprints. I say 20 just to be on the safe side. Buy 20 blueprints from the from the faction store, from the event store. You need to be Ops 36 to see it. It does not show up on my Ops 35 account, I don't think. Now that I've said that, let's go check real quick. Ship blueprints. I don't think it was over here. Make me a liar? Make me a liar? Yeah, no Cerritos. So I say buy 20 because a couple months back we did have an issue where this event got bugged and people were unable to complete the milestone. So to make up for that, they did a comp chest and they sent everyone 10 blueprints. And for some people who had gotten 90 through this event, and then when they got that comp chest with those last 10 in it, the game had now given you 100 blueprints through this event, and California class stopped spawning for them. And they were not happy. Because basically what you do, and what they had been doing, is because they would just do the first 2 or 3 milestones every Wednesday. They'd get a little bit of titanium, a little bit of extra crystal, and they would stop at the 3rd milestone. And they would never finish this 4th milestone. And they would get, what's this, 30, 40 million titanium and like 80 or 90 crystal. Not a lot, but it's a free little extra Wednesday gift, right? So if you're going to buy blueprints for your Cerritos, buy 20. So that way, just in case there's another screw up, you don't lose your event. And then, you'll get 80 through the California class event every Wednesday. And then lastly down here, we've got the sarcophagus and the amalgam. The amalgam is slightly different in your cosmic cleanup event. The amalgam is 100 blueprints to build, but instead of giving you 10 every week, they only give you 8, which means it's going to take you 12 and a half weeks. And since you can't do half a week, it's going to take you 13 weeks to build the amalgam. So if you're around Ops 30, 31 and this is available to you, I recommend purchasing 20 blueprints of the amalgam. That will leave you needing 80. You get 8 a week. It only takes you 10 weeks, just like the Discovery and the other ships. You can buy more than that, of course, but make sure you get at least 20 because you'll cut 3 weeks off your grind time for 30,000 event store currency. Sarcophagus, only useful for territory combat and really not even that useful anymore with the other strike teams and stuff. It's slow. It only works when it's actually on the node. Most people, once they kick you off the node, trying to get one through to get it back on is pretty challenging, and usually there's cloaked ships and other stuff waiting around for it that will kill you while you're on the way because its impulse speed is terrible. Fuchsia. Well, we'll skip that for a second. Franklin, this is a regular Franklin. You, there's no reason to build a second one unless you're just a collector, so we'll just skip that altogether. The Fuchsia, much like leveling up a Franklin and scrapping it to get the Franklin A, you can level up a Devore and scrap it at level 41, tier 9, to get a full unlock of a Fuchsia. But much like the Franklin, going from tier 7 to tier 9 takes a ridiculous amount of Devore parts, and since you are very limited in how often in the numbers that you can get out of your refinery, it takes a really long time to do it. So a lot of people will try and level theirs up instead to, I think it's tier 8, will get you halfway. If you can at least get it to tier 8 and get it to, whatever that is, level 36, and scrap it, you'll get half the Fuchsia, and then you can buy the other half here. Or what some of them end up doing, because they can't even get it that far, is they buy half now, and then in 3 or 4 months from now, we have the next event store, they just buy the other half, and then they never scrap their original Devore. They eventually scrap it months down the road when it's finally at tier 9, and then they have 2 Devores. Or they just leave it at tier 9. So picking up half a Fuchsia, you could get 12 of these, so 75,000-ish to get half a Fuchsia is a pretty good value. Certainly something, if you don't have a Fuchsia, put that on your Christmas list. That's it for ship blueprints. Ship parts, kind of the same thing. Again, like looking at Devore parts, 500 Devore parts at 1,100 is pretty pricey, especially when you consider how many parts this may take you. We'll just look real quick. Like, where's my Devore? On my free account here, my Devore is tier 7. I need 18, 36, 41, 81,000 minus the 17,000, so 65,000 we'll call it. 65,000 parts to go from the finish up tier 7 and get it to tier 8. 65,000 parts at 500 a bundle. $130 bundles times 1,100 per chest. 143,000 is what I'd have to spend on regular Devore parts to get those last 3 components for tier 7. See what I mean? Really expensive. Instead of spending 130,000 on that, maybe I would just spend 75,000 on the Fuchsia blueprints, and then 3 months from now spend another 75,000 and just get the ship, instead of goofing around with Devore parts. Spore drive components aren't bad. They are overpriced. 200 for 6,000. That's very pricey. It's good to level up the discovery, to do the research, to get the summoning. That kind of stuff is very good, and you do want to do that. But this is like a low priority item. Plutonium's only useful for the Botany Bay and the other hijack ships. The Botany Bay you should be building, and you probably already have it tiered up pretty high by the point in time, unless you're a newer player in your low 20s. So you probably don't need this. And the hijack ships you should never build at all, because they're just a waste of resources. If you built a second Franklin and didn't heed my advice, or just a collector who wanted a second Franklin, I know I'm going to piss off at least one person with that, but I don't see the need for a second Franklin, honestly. I'm sorry, I don't. Maybe somebody can explain to me the benefit of having a second one, other than just for collectability. For those rare occasions where you want to, you're doing your dailies and you kill the high-level swarms, and then you go back to base, and then you switch ships to go to the regular Franklin, because it's cheaper to repair than the other Franklin, but the Franklin A kills the other things so much quicker and easier that the time you spend going back and forth and repairing and switching ships and then going back out and then killing more swarms, and it's just not worth the extra effort in my opinion. But if you did get a second one, here's where you could get the warp interlocks you would need to tier the ship up. And the same thing holds true over here for the Franklin A components. If you had a second Franklin A for whatever reason, you would not get the warp interlocks. You would have to buy them, so you could tier up each level, and here's each level that you would need. Same thing with the Fuchsia. If you wanted to upgrade, get a second Fuchsia and upgrade it, you would also need the warp parts to do that. Amalgam parts, Fuchsia parts, Cerritos parts, and Mantis parts all fall with the same caveat and warning. You can get a good amount of parts. They all cost $7,500 per bundle. Math out what you need to tier up and see if it's reasonable and in the wheelhouse of what you would actually need to do it to get to your next tier. If you're thinking about making an investment and trying to really move up a ship, like I really want to upgrade my Amalgam or I really want to upgrade my Fuchsia a lot, just know the costs remain the same. The amount of currency you get changes based on the tier level of your ship. So if my Amalgam is currently tier 5 and I want to get it to tier 7 and I'm thinking, all right, I need 100,000 parts to do it, don't just buy 100,000 parts. Buy whatever you need to go from tier 5 to tier 6. Stop. Upgrade the ship, tier it up to tier 6, then come back. The amount of parts you get per bundle will have increased. So instead of getting 6,000 parts, maybe I'll get 6,500 parts. And then I have to buy less bundles to get the rest of the materials that I need to go the next level. Just a little fun tip. Maybe it'll save you a little bit of currency. And that holds true for all of these level-based ships. The Cerritos, the Mantis, the Fuchsia, the Amalgam. And that's it for ship parts. So you're moving right along here. Home stretch, frames and avatars, purely cosmetic. If there's nothing else in the store for you, you're a level 59 whale or 60 whale, you've purchased everything else in the game, and for some reason you don't already have these avatars and frames, then that's probably what you're spending your event store currency on. Because at 150K for a frame, or 300,000 for some of these avatars and things, it's just not worth it. For something purely cosmetic that has no in-game value, to spend half your event store on it, yeah, that's just not worth it. Resources and materials, there are so many ways to get resources for things, but if you happen, this is more of a at the end of the run thing. You purchased your officers, you got some of your ship parts to upgrade your Cerritos or whatever, and you're like, I got 25,000 left. Well, maybe I pick up a little bit of extra materials. The conversion rates on these are not that great. Like if I wanted 4-star uncommon gas to tier up my ship, I'm spending 3,000 for 74. Most of my ship parts cost like 3,000 or 4,000. So, but if I'm just trying to spend that last 10,000, 15,000 currency just to round it out, yeah, sure, throw a little in here or whatever like that to try and get you a little closer, maybe get you one more component for a research or a ship upgrade or something like that. But this is more of a, I'm at the end of my store and I'm just trying to use up what I've got left kind of thing. Or I'm really desperate, I only need one component left, I'm only like 100 or 200 away, I can finish that last component and then tier up the ship, and then tiering up the ship gets me like a new officer slot. There's something going on there. That's where you start looking in that stuff. Cloaking is our last tab. You've also got some refits in here. I love this. Limit 125 shards. It only costs 120 to build it. You can only buy 120 actually. Did you notice that they did the double it? Its remaining is 120 that they limit you to getting, even though it says 125 up there, because they didn't change the graphic from the last time they ran the store where they did this incorrectly, and we pointed it out and said, hey, this is wrong, and they went, oh yeah, you're right, because this over here was 125. And it was the math for 125, and it was like, but you only need 120 to unlock it. So they fixed the math and the packs, and you can get the whole Cerritos refit. If you have a Cerritos and you don't have the refit, it's a pretty good refit. We'll look at it in a second. Cloakings are expensive. 5,000 a shard. You need 60 shards. That's 300k to get cloaking for a Valdor, or where's an auger? Let's look at a G3. 120 shards at 1875. Again, that's well over like 150k. It's a lot to spend on cloaking for one ship, especially if it's going to be a ship that you might outgrow, which you tend to do in ships. I'd rather see you spend the materials on a projectile like the temporal torpedo. For that same 150,000, instead of getting cloaking for your auger, you could get the temporal torpedo, which will then increase damage against armadas by 20%, no matter what ship you're using. And if you're using 3 of your ships in a solo armada, well, each of them gets a 20% bonus to their damage. So something like that might be a little better for you. Some of this stuff down here, the TOS refits, the positron phaser, there's also the rainbow one as well. Those are also in the amalgam refinery. They take a while to get, but they are available here. The refractive beam, the positronic phaser beam, the jellyfish, these are the regular auger D4 Enterprise refits. They're all there, amalgam cloaking. So they're all there already for you. So you have another way to source that. Granted, it's one that takes a long time. Maybe if you're really interested in one of those, maybe picking up part of one of these just to speed things up a little bit for you. You've got a bunch of it already and you're just trying to get the last handful that you need. But at $37.50 a piece and it costs $80 to do, you're talking about, we'll round up, 80 times 4,000 is what, 300k? Yeah. Half your event store, and what did you get? The refit for your Enterprise. That improves your damage by 70% against hostiles only. Yeah, not really the best thing to go there. So there's my deep dive into sort of the value behind everything. I know that was longer than I thought. Wow, it was already over an hour. Thank you guys very much for watching this far. I mentioned at the beginning to, best thing to do, make yourself a spreadsheet. Kind of just go through and start figuring out what you would need to unlock some stuff. What's on your wish list? Dear Santa, here's what's on my wish list. Let's make this bigger so you guys can see it better. We'll zoom in too. What's on my wish list? My Ops 35 account. If I wanted these strike team officers, this is, I have Pawn, I have Garrick already. Those were given to us during the arc. So the other 4 are the ones that I don't have. These, in parentheses, are the number of shards that I need. Then, rares are 2,000 a shard. Epics are 6,000 a shard. If I'm starting to look at some stuff like there, like, for what it would take to get Odo completely, 526,000, I could get the remaining shards I need for Wayun and Dukat for almost the same price. So what's got more value to me? One Odo or a Wayun and a Dukat? Would probably go back, and this is what I was talking about, where you're spending things. These 2 guys are probably going to get me further than one Odo would. And then if I have a little bit left over and I can pick up Damar and possibly a Kataka to finish out the set, this is basically 600k right here. 616,000. If that's what we get, 550 to 600k, and I have some tickets and I do ticket events or things like that to squeeze out, or I finish higher on I grind a little more to finish a little higher on a leaderboard to try and squeeze out an extra 6 or 10,000 currency to make sure I get to that 616 point. I could get all 4 officers and just chalk that up and call that a good event store. I could also pick up a Mantis. I could also get half of a Fuchsia, so that way I'm halfway to that later on. Looking down here, some things that I could just spend some random currency on, to round out things. And these are like, this is me really just showing you the math here. Auger cloaking for my auger, 225,000 if I wanted to just buy the whole thing. Well, what would I be better off with? The cloaking for one ship or unlocking Wayoon? It's Wayoon. What if I wanted that TOS refit, 300,000? Am I better off with that so I can do 70% more damage to hostiles? Or am I better off getting Ducat for an interceptor for my Defiant that I might get someday for, my future G4 ships somewhere down the road, maybe a G5 ship in 2026, That's what you're looking at here. So over here on my higher level Ops 46 account, again, the same thing. Scored a little better in some of those events, so the amount of officers needed to get the rest of the strike team, it's only 192,000 to unlock everybody. Definitely going to be a must-have with that. Do I get some Odo shards then after that? Do I probably get some ship parts for some of these ships? Maybe. Do I get cloaking for my Pylum, which is only available currently through cash? Wouldn't get it for the Valdor. Probably not going to use that ship too much longer and not really going to tier it up that much higher. So 300k here, not really a good value. The Pylum I'm going to hang on to and I'm going to use for a long time. And since that one is not currently in the faction store, I can't buy it with faction credits. The Valdor I can. I can cash in a bunch of Romulan credits and get that. So probably not going to do it here. But again, I just threw out there just for comparison's sake, looking at some of the things that are on here. In fact, I can just go ahead and take this off right now because I'm not going to do it. So now I've got the Pylum down here looking a little better. Picking up that second Meridian. It's like, go all in on Odo or get all 4 of these officers plus, the other half of a Meridian that I need and a Pylum. Well, that's 715. That's a little over, but, you kind of get the point where you could end up there. So make yourself a spreadsheet, kind of line out things. Here's the other part I'm going to say about not spending on stuff just yet. Like, these are the number of officer shards I needed at the beginning of the arc. But then they went ahead and they ran an event the other day. The baseball event, right? The second time they've run it, they gave out these holographic card chests. In those holographic card chests, you have chances to get those 6 strike team officers, as well as Cisco and O'Brien, who were also in the event store. But these 6 strike team officers are right here. So if I had purchased all of the shards, like, oh, I need 30 Wayoon shards, let me just go ahead and buy them all right now and get them done. Well, I need 15 in this case. Let me just buy my 15 and get Wayoon done. I guarantee you the first time I opened one of these packs, I would have gotten Wayoon shards. Guarantee it. Because that's just how that RNG rolls, right? So, you've got 11 days left in the event arc. When, we get through the calendar and we kind of know where everything's going to fall and we're running out of time on the event store, then go ahead and pick up things, How many people were like, oh, I only need 15 or 20 Ducat shards, and they bought their Ducat shards so they could get him unlocked. And then they open their treasury this month and go, oh, crap, there's 20 Ducat shards right there. If you're getting your treasury unlock, make sure you do this first, right, before you spend on your shards, or make sure you at least account for it if you're doing your treasury unlock this month, because that's 20 less shards right there. Is the baseball event going to come back? I think that's it for this month for the free ones, but you could also, if you're so inclined, there is a, oh, hey, this is new. What are we giving out for Syndicate XP? Oh, 50,000. Hey, look at that, plus a whole bunch of resources. There was a pack in here. Did they take it down? Oh, no, here it is, holographic card pack. So for 50 bucks, you get 5 more chances. If you're so inclined and you're a gambling man, you could pick this up if you like spending money. Roll the dice, see what kind of officer shards you get before you make your pack purchases. There's the elite one as well. This one gives you an extra pull. So instead of getting 5 pulls, times 2 would be 10 pulls. You get 11 pulls. So buy 10, get the 11th for free. and you can re-roll that, and maybe you'll get some Ducat and Wayun shards that way, and then you won't need to buy them through the event store, and you can devote those resources to something else, like Odo shards or something. So make yourself a list, sit tight. The only exception that I would say, if you're really, obviously, if you really need these particular officers and you're close to unlocking or tearing up Riker or Jayla and getting these extra shards makes a difference for you, or you really like the Armada directives and see the value in it there, and there's not a lot of other stuff that you're interested in, then yes, go ahead and pick that up now before it expires. The only other thing would be for the Mantis, right? If you're at like 70, 75 blueprints already and you just want to get the ship done and get it built, the Incursion store does have the Battleship Strike Team officers, or at least it did. At least we've been told that that's how they're going to be sourced for the immediate future. So go ahead, spend your currency, get your remaining Mantis blueprints, get that ship rolling, and then when Incursions comes back in January, you'll buy some Battleship Strike crew, get some Strike Team Lawn shards or something like that with your currency instead. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this informative. As always, leave any comments about questions you may have about specific item purchases. There may be a couple things in here that maybe I can't see, because once you unlock certain things too, sometimes it doesn't show you them in the store. So if you have a question about the value on something like that, you can certainly leave it in the comments down below. But I appreciate you guys sticking with it this far. Hopefully you're tuning in not just to these videos over here, but I'm also live on Twitch 3 days a week. We'll be doing some holiday giveaways the rest of the between now and Christmas. So be sure and check out some of those shows over there. Hope to see you soon, if I don't see you around the galaxy first.